Hello and welcome to this edition of Mark in the Park, the program where we tell you what's going on at Urbana Park District. Remember, at Urbana Park District, you belong here. I'm Mark Schultz and we're pleased to be joined today by Judy Miller, Environmental Program Manager at Urbana Park District. How are you doing today?
I'm good.
Good. And coming up in 2019 is a fantastic year for Urbana Park District's Anita Purves Nature Center. Tell us about that.
It is. It will be the Nature Center's 40th anniversary. It's hard to believe that the city has had that long of a nature center, and we have a year worth of activities planned to celebrate the anniversary.
We're going to be talking about those activities a little bit later on, but first a little bit of history at Anita Purves Nature Center, built in 1979, 40 years ago. Why did they build it?
Well, the Park District followed a lot of nature center building designs in the early 70s. If you'll think back to that time period, it was during the Clean Water and Clean Air Act. The first Earth Day happened in the early 70s. And the Park District had a group of people, one of which was Anita Parker Purves, who were instrumental in helping the Park District recognize being involved in the environment. And so they had in our old recreation center, the Thornburn Center, there was an environmental awareness center, a little room that allowed people to come and learn about nature. Anita was one of the Park District's first advisory committee members, and she really was instrumental in encouraging the Park District to look at getting the use of Busey Woods. There was a group of people from the Natural Areas Study Group who were taking school kids on hikes on this property, and the Busey family who owned the property were looking at selling it. The land was ultimately donated to the University of Illinois, and the Park District received a 20-year lease, $1 a year lease through the university to start its environmental education programs. Anita was dying of breast cancer. She was only 34 years old, and but she recognized the importance of having a facility that would introduce the public, specifically school children, to the environments around Champaign-Urbana. And so she came to the signing of the lease of Busey Woods, and at her request, the Park District started fundraising after she died for there to be a facility, and the facility to be named after her. And the Park District started off with a school agreement where a full-time person was hired, and it was half-time school district, half-time Park District to provide environmental education programs, primarily for school-aged children. And so that's all happened in 1979, almost 40 years ago.
Wow. And so was there at some point where the Park District has purchased the area, or is there still a lease agreement going on with U of I?
In the late 80s, the Park District started talking to the university about renewing the lease. And the university never really wanted the property. They have other properties that are more pristine. Busey Woods has been dumped in and grazed and forested and ecologically had some questionable areas, but worked perfectly for educating the public. So the Park District talked to the university, and through a grant through the Department of Natural Resources, we secured the property of the land by purchasing it in 1991. And so the Park District has since then developed management plans for Busey Woods and enlarged the Nature Center over the last 20 years.
Excellent. And we'll get to talking about the Nature Center itself in a second, but you said the Busey Woods had been dumped on and grazed on.
Right.
Did the Park District have to really do some cleanup in the area?
Well, again, when the settlers came in the 1800s, they were drawn toward wooded areas because they needed to build, and they were more familiar with wooded areas. Prairies were not a common occurrence until you got east of Ohio. And so they used the woods in the 1960s, early 70s. The Busey family was looking at developing the property, and in order to do that, you have to have level ground. And the saline branch of the Salt Fork River, which flows past the Nature Center through Crystal Lake Park, used to flow into the woods. And in the turn of the century, 1909, I think it was the year, they channeled that and cut off the water source into the woods except during flood events. And so at the same time, Lincoln Square Mall was being built, and that mall is situated where a neighborhood used to be. They tore down the neighborhood and dumped the rubble in Busey Woods. So as you go for a hike for Busey Woods, you might find staircases going nowhere, slabs of sidewalks. And the goal at that time in the late 60s was to bulldoze it down and develop it into some, there was plans maybe for Parkland College or for Research Park or for other development. The family gave up on that project most likely because of funding and moved away, and that's when they donated the land to the University of Illinois instead, and then we purchased it in the 1990s. So we did do some cleaning, but we left a lot of it because plants have grown in between it all. I always equate it to the idea of a Band-Aid. When you fall and, off your bike and bruise your elbow, you get a scab on it, and if you rip the Band-Aid off at the wrong time, it can cause the scab to break. It would take a lot of machinery and a lot of disturbance in the woods to take some of the rubble out. So we leave it there, one, because nature has covered it up. We have lots of trees and animals living among it. And two, it helps remind us of the history that happened in that woods.
That's a good reason to do it, and it makes kind of a quirky, eclectic walk sometimes.
It does.
The staircase to nowhere.
That's a favorite place for a lot of people.
Yes, yes. And so there's a lot of nature in Busey Woods, a lot of birds, a lot of other interesting things in the air and on the ground. And you brought a little friend today.
I did.
This is one of the visitors to Busey Woods.
This is a woodcock. They're commonly seen in February and March, both at Busey Woods as well as at Meadowbrook Park and other parks around the community. It's a very interesting bird, and we have a hike that we do every year in March, a free hike where people can come out at twilight and look for them as they do their mating rituals. It's very a bizarre experience. They're very well camouflaged, and you can almost step on one before it will move. I was saying earlier that they will take off and land in almost the exact same spot. So if you have one fly up right in front of you, you can watch it go up and do its ritual in the sky. It's kind of an interesting dance, we call it. And then it whistles on its way back down and lands about the same spot. And the whole point of that is to attract a female who they will then, some will stay in the area and breed, but most continue up north, farther north into Canada and the northern states to be able to mate. It's got a lot of interesting names. I always have to look it up because they're very, besides woodcock, it's also called the Labrador twister, a pop-eyed shot dodger, and a mud snipe. And you have to come to the program in March, on the 20th of March next year, to learn more about this bird with an upside-down brain.
An upside-down brain?
It has an upside-down brain,
well,
yeah.
Seeing of all the you just said all the crazy things a bird does, I guess that may explain a few things.
Yeah, it's a very interesting bird, well suited for the type of habitat it lives in and how it moves around. If you notice, its eyeballs are on top of its head because it lies in the brush area hiding and doesn't have to look around to be able to see prey coming after it.
One of the few, or one of the many birds that use Busey Woods as kind of a stopover on their migratory path, and they also, other birds also nest there.
They do, and Busey Woods will be doing quite a few birds programs this spring because of the spring migration. We'll do a beginner's course on bird watching for people. We'll participate with the Audubon Society on the Great Backyard Bird Count, where people can come to the Nature Center and go for a hike and help us count all the birds that you can see, as well as a family or adult owl prowl and a children's owl prowl, where you can go out and listen for owls that live in the woods. It's a great place. Busey Woods is a great oasis for birds as they migrate up north during the spring migration.
Judy Miller, Environmental Program Manager, is our guest today on Mark in the Park as we talk about the Anita Purves Nature Center's 40th anniversary in 2019. And birds and wildlife are a major focus of the Nature Center. How has the Nature Center changed over the years?
When the building was first built, the Park District expected between 5,000 and 10,000 people to visit it. So it opened in 1979 with a small classroom, an exhibit area, and some offices as a stopping point before you went out for a hike in the woods to learn a little bit about the natural history of our area. in 1989, we actually started counting our visitors and discovered that we were seeing between 16 and 20,000 people. So we were bursting at the seams, literally. In 1994, we closed our doors for a year, expanded the building, went from 3,000 square feet to 10,000 square feet, and designated areas in the building. So we have a public space with our field station, an observation room, and gift shop, and then we have a separate space for programs so that you could have several activities going on in the building without them infringing on each other during it. And then we have staff workspaces that allow us to do projects and meetings without taking up classroom space or public space. We also, this year, will be redoing some of our exhibits as part of the 20th anniversary. So there'll be some new things that are refreshed and different than they were when we first put them in the late 90s.
And tell us a little bit about the observatory, the Nature Observatory. I have gone in there before, and it's just a great place to just sit and mellow out for a while. Tell us a little bit about that.
So that space was funded through Carle Foundation Hospital. They helped fund both the building and the room, as well as the exhibits and the habitat garden initially. There is a garden planted right outside the windows. The windows are floor to ceiling, and so give you a nice view into Busey Woods. And we just redid the planting over the last 2 years to make it more of a savanna look, a planting that brings in insects throughout the year that draw birds and other wildlife to the habitat garden. We have a parabolic sound system that allows you to hear the birds and the other animals as they're coming in. It also allows us to hear a little bit about people as they're walking by down into the woods. And there's a nice seating area where you can sit and observe the birds. We have interpretive exhibits that talk about what kind of common birds you'll find there. And as you said, it's a wonderful, just a quiet place to go. We purposely made that a separate space than our exhibit hall so that it could be a contemplative space and someplace just to rest and enjoy the view as opposed to having all the commotion that happens in the field station.
Mm-hmm. And what else can people see in the exhibit hall?
In the field station, which is our exhibit hall, our focus is on native species. We talk about the types of insects, the birds, the geology of the area, the plants that you might find. We have several live animals. We just acquired a new snake, a little baby fox snake, that will be joining the exhibit hall animals as it gets bigger. Right now it's on the front desk so that we can monitor it. So there's 4 different snakes, several different box turtles, both ornate and eastern box turtles. And then we have 3 screech owls, all of them with eye injuries. They are used for programs. Our oldest owl, who's about 14 years old, is being retired this year. It's having some health issues, so we're letting it just be an exhibit owl at this point. And then there's lots of drawers to open and a parabolic, a flex cam that allows you to look at things and project it onto a television screen, and that allows you to share what you're finding with people that you're with.
And there are programs at the Nature Center, and you sometimes take the animals out to other places. Kids can see these animals up close and personal if they come to a program.
They can. We go to libraries and other events in the community. They've been on TV lots of times. In fact, I think my last Mark in the Park I brought up one of the owls. They are used as ambassadors to help educate people of the type of species of animals that are common in our area. The screech owls are found all over Champaign-Urbana, and so, but you don't normally see them because they're kind of secretive. So this gives an up close look. And all of these animals were injured in some way and would not survive in the wild, so this gives them an ability to stay alive and have a safe place to live where food and water and shelter is provided.
So that's a very nice thing that you can do for the animal, and the animal can then be a little bit of a teacher.
Exactly.
Now this stuff goes on every day at Anita Purves Nature Center. What special things are happening to celebrate our 40th anniversary?
Well, we decided instead of doing just one big event that we would celebrate all 40 years. And so for each year of the part of the Nature Center's existence, we selected a program that was popular back in that day and are bringing it back. Some of them are programs that we've continued to do in all of the 40 years, and some of them are just programs that were offered maybe once or twice, and for whatever reason were put to rest, and now we're bringing it back. Some are just regular programs, both free and fee-based, and some of them are mini events that we'll be doing throughout the next year and a half.
And if people want to find out more, they can, of course, go to urbanaparks.org or look up the program guide, because there's a big spread about it in there.
And we're designing programs for all ages. There are programs just for preschoolers and their parents, as well as our camp kids, school programs, but there's also programs for all ages being offered. As I said, some of them are more event related. For example, in February, we're doing our backyard bird count with that's a national event that we bring in people to help us count the birds. We're also bringing back an event, a festival that we did years ago called the Big Grove Storytelling Festival. We're lucky enough to have some national storytellers here in Champaign-Urbana. One of our past staff, who's since moved to another area of the state, is coming back as well. We'll have 4 tellers, and they will be with us for an afternoon in March as a way to celebrate a program that was offered years ago that we wanted to bring back and highlight again. As I said before, we're having a lot of bird programs. We have the Woodcock Walk that I talked about. For several Sundays during the spring and in the fall, we're going to open early on Sundays and have refreshments and ability to borrow binoculars to go out and do the bird walks. And that program is called Bird, Binocs, and Beverages. It's kind of a social event, allow people to go out for a hike and then come back in and enjoy the observation room while having some light snacks and sharing what kind of birds they saw. And right around the Easter holiday, we're doing a program called Eggtastics, where we will help you learn how to dye your eggs with natural items and take home eggs that look like bird eggs that are colored a little differently than when you use the dyes from the store. And then one of the things we'll be doing for all 3 seasons next year, both in the spring a couple times, one in the summer and one in the fall, we are doing moonwalks, taking the full moon. These were very popular back in the 90s, and so we're going to highlight the full moon and go out for hikes in the woods to discover what animals live and how they survive during the evening time. In May, we're doing an International Migratory Bird Day, again a focus on birds, especially during the spring migration. And there we have a couple scientists who will be catching birds and bird banding them, so people can learn about the science of studying birds and their travels as they migrate north and south. And then for June, we have our 30th anniversary. So it's the 40th anniversary for Nature Center, but 30th anniversary for our Strawberry Jam event. And that'll be out at Meadowbrook Park. And we're looking at bringing in some new features for that special event. That'll be I think it's the 15th of June. And then another popular program that we did years ago was we did a Lunchbox Naturalist program, and this was done over the lunch hour. We would pick a park in the park district, not necessarily a natural area, it could have been a neighborhood park, and we would situate a naturalist who would come out and help people explore what nature is right there in their backyard. And we would release what park it is a couple days before, and it got so popular last year that people were calling and requesting that the naturalist would come to their neighborhood. And that'll be going on in June and July for Wednesday afternoons. And then in September, we're bringing back an event we did for our 20th anniversary. Well, I guess maybe it was the 25th anniversary. Yeah, it would have been the 25th. We are bringing back a BioBlitz, and this is a pretty exciting event. When we did it before, we found out that we had we recorded over 12,000 species in Busey Woods. It's a 24-hour counting system where we bring in scientists of all disciplines who come out and explore the woods and make a record of what the animals they find and what plants they find in that 24-hour period of time.
And how many species again?
12,000. And
that's amazing.
It'll be nice because now we'll be able to compare at a different time of year what species we have. Before we did it in early June. This year we're going to do it in late September. year. And so we really depend on the scientists both at the University of Illinois and the DNR office. We're also doing something a little different this time too, is the week before the BioBlitz, those 4 days before, we're hoping to have scientists come out and meet up with students from our school programs and do some citizen science studies. So maybe one day we have a mammologist coming, and every school group that comes for that day would have some studies with that mammologist and see how he does his job in the field and help record the animals that they're finding. So that's in September. And then in December, we have lots of other programs during the fall, but our next event that will close out the year for our celebration, we have a winter solstice event that will bring back a festival we did years ago. The winter solstice we've done the last couple years, but we used to do a Prairie Grove holiday event. And this is where people can come for the afternoon, late afternoon, go for a hike at twilight, have a campfire, and just different crafts and activities around the holiday season.
So a lot of stuff going on, and I think some people realize or need to realize that the Nature Center for our area might be some kids' only contact with nature, or their first contact with nature.
Yes, it is. Although we're featuring programs from the past, we're also celebrating what we have now, which include the Nature Playscape. We have programs that will be going on in that site as well. We're going to be working with area school groups to bring back some programs in the winter and in the fall that we did with school groups in the past and want to bring back and see if they can help meet the standards that teachers need for their courses with their students.
And people can always find this out at urbanaparks.org, and also you're on social media.
We are. Both the Park District and the Nature Center have a Facebook page and a Twitter account. We'll be advertising throughout. One of the things that we'll be doing to encourage people's continual involvement with us is we'll have a secret phrase for each season of the year next year, and a word will be posted on our social media, and if you come in and tell us that word, you'll be entered into a raffle. And at several of our special events during the summer, we'll have drawings of special treats regarding the Nature Center and the Park District, as well as the environment around us.
Urbana Park District's Anita Purves Nature Center, on urbanaparks.org. Look for the Nature Center on Facebook and Twitter. A very exciting 2019 ahead. Thank you, Judy, for your time.
Thank you.
Judy Miller, Environmental Program Manager from Anita Purves Nature Center, our guest today on Mark in the Park, talking about 2019, big year at the Nature Center, its 40th anniversary celebration. Be sure to go to urbanaparks.org or follow us on Facebook and Twitter at Urbana Park District to find out all about Anita Purves Nature Center and other programs at Urbana Park District, so you know that you belong here. I'm Mark Schultz. Thanks for joining us.